Hi, Tom Manke here. We're talking with my brother, Karl Manke, who's kind of an authority on the cruising in Owosso, being 74 years old and being tied up back in that time period, especially back in the old time, and then in the 60s when a local person by the name of Peter Kent Powell helped coin the phrase aimlessly driving. But what Karl was first told us was, Karl, if I understand right, the first run was it went from the El Forno, it went down South Washington Street, went east on Corona Avenue past the different restaurants there, turned back down the old Oakwood Bridge, then turned east again, went past the all of the restaurants that were out there at that time. Drive-ins.
Yeah,
Yes.
that was the big thing. Drive-in restaurants.
And then came back down again into around the El Forno.
Yeah.
Then, at what time did it change? Do you remember? Did it change to where it mainly went from the El Forno around out to Rohax, and then out around Rohax, and then back?
Well, that was in the 50s. That was when Al Rohack opened his restaurant out there. And probably, I'd say, probably around 1957, 58, 59, somewhere in there that, that it extended itself to several other drive-in restaurants out that way. But it was mainly from one teenage hangout to another. They're kind of the hot spots, whatever was going on, where people would gather around. You go through there to see who was there, see who was hanging out, check it out, and it was called cruising. That term kind of just fit. What are you going to do on Friday night? We're cruising. What'd you do on Friday night, Saturday night? We cruised. And that was it was a whole different mindset, and it was new. It got boring after a while. I'll say that. Just driving around did get a little boring, but nevertheless, it continued. And the downtown merchants, as the number of cars began to increase, where young people, again, had their own cars, many of them by the 60s, and were clogging up the streets in the downtown area. And the merchants were taking exception to that their customers were complaining. Seems like the older generation always complained about the younger generation. And it was going on back then, that the older generation was taking exception to all these kids driving around on the streets. Well, they had a little clout especially with the law enforcement people and the chief of police. And we had that first chief's name was Potter, that he was going to cure the problem. He was going to cure the problem he was going to issue tickets for aimlessly driving. And my buddy Pete Powell, he and some other people, they whipped up these bumper stickers that said, "I am an aimless driver." And, they had a big meeting down at the YMCA and invited all these young people in, and the chief of police was there, and he was going to tell it how it was. And, of course, those kind of meetings, they just sort of ended up causing probably more problems than they hoped to achieve, that they would cure. So, ultimately, no tickets that I ever remember were ever enforced. They may have given a ticket, but I don't think the courts wanted all those tickets jamming up their circuit, So I don't ever remember anybody being convicted of aimless driving, even though the threat was there.
Well, it did come into the later period once you were gone out of that, and a new time period came in. It did, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on the video, on another video, on how it was in the 70s into the 80s, and then hopefully we'll even touch base on how cruising was into the 90s.
Well, even at this time, there was still chief of police Harry Jankovic by this time. You know, he was hell bent on stopping cruising, and he even got to the point where he would wear his chief's uniform and direct traffic downtown himself, and he would have people pulled over and stopped on all four corners. And some of the shenanigans that went on at that time, I remember one of these local guys, they put him in the back of a cruiser, and they had one cruiser on that corner, another one on another one, another one on another one. While he's in there, you know, he's unattended, he loosened up the bubble on the top of the cruiser, and then he stole somebody's police hat with a badge on it. So it was just chaotic. It was just you know, all kinds of nonsense going on, and you know, sort of fun times with it for the kids, but it was kind of a frustrating time for adults. So cruising kind of eventually came to kind of a screeching halt.
Well, thank you, Karl. Thank you for these memories back, and we'll talk to you again on some other local historical issues if you would be so kind. Tom Manke, Friends of Community News and Views. We're clear.